So, Kate, thank you so much for joining us today to share everything you know and love about Awakening Together and your wisdom that's come to you since studying with Awakening Together. We're really excited to hear about it. But first, and it should be important to say that thanks for joining us on this evening in Liverpool. So people can see that we are all over the world with Awakening Together. I'm obviously in London. But you've been with Awakening Together, we think about 7 years, not entirely sure on the time frame. Can you just talk us through initially what attracted you, what really drew you to Awakening Together?
Well, it was Regina, like I'd heard Regina teaching or being interviewed, but she was teaching as well, on a Jennifer Hadley conference type thing. And she just struck me, just as being this very, very sincere, very dedicated, very, very normal, straightforward, a woman that, was around my age, had a child, had a life, that, all of that just very normal and never kind of no airs and graces, no kind of thing about her. Just she was doing it. I didn't quite know what she was doing because I didn't really know what this was all about, but I just was inspired by her, and so I listened to more.
And then you're in, and if I'm right, you went on a pilgrimage and then joined a gentle healing program, is that right?
Yeah, so she'd started the gentle healing program just before the India pilgrimage, the first, well, I don't know if it was her first, maybe it was a second pilgrimage. But yeah, that's and I went on that pilgrimage because I wanted to go to India. I just thought that was a great way to do it. And I also was listening to Muji at the time. So I was, I had planned the trip that I was going to spend the couple of weeks in the pilgrimage in India with Regina and Awakening Together, but also I had planned that I was going to go on to Rishikesh and sit with Muji, and and that was fantastic, but I didn't realize how much I would get from being with that group and immersing myself. Regina was amazing. She was so generous with her time, and and everyone there was, there was so many people there who, are still in my life now. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, we heard from Anne Blanchard, who was talking a bit about how that trip also changed her life.
Yeah.
So we obviously spend time like honing our spiritual aspiration, awakening together, and then sort of developing our own practice, with much of the practices that we learn from Awakening Together and from Regina and other teachers. Could you just share with us, if it's all right, your spiritual aspiration, and then how Awakening Together has sort of helped your path towards that?
Yeah, so it's just recently kind of changed because I did the In the World But Not of It retreat with Anne and Rhoda just recently, and the 3 values that I kind of came up with in that, or that I didn't come up with, they came up, they got me, was commitment, fearlessness, and transcendence.
Wow.
And they and yeah, there was a lot of resistance here to that because but they've continued. That's only probably been about I don't know, a month ago that we did that retreat, maybe less, but I felt them really working strongly in me. And my practice is is so kind of, you know, there's some parts of it that are so structured in that I'm doing 500 days with NTI. I'm facilitating some MPP classes.
Right.
And I share in the sanctuary. So there's like a, you know, there is a structure in those things that is helpful, but really my practice is every day, every, you know, every moment that is available, that I remember, you know, what I am.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's my practice. That's just that continual remembering and you know, really not giving myself a hard time for forgetting.
Right. And I suppose that speaks to that commitment part
Yes.
of your, of your aspiration. So, you know, what, I guess, you know, what does that spiritual practice look like then? Is it sort of noticing where you've got pulled in and coming back? You know, we practice things like rest, accept, and trust. Like, how does it manifest for you during your day?
It starts the minute I wake. In that there's a kind of a almost now like an automatic scanning of because the thoughts will start almost, you know, immediately. But there's this scanning that happens of what are the thoughts that are running right now? What is it that's running? What's happening here? And so that pulls me back into, you know, the observer. I used to think being detached was a really, really bad thing, right?
Yeah.
And now I just see it as just this, you know, this, it's just becoming more familiar, I think, because I do it all the time. So it's and then when big things come up, you know, like say I'm driving, you know, one of the things that I drive to work in the morning, and sometimes I will put on you know, a teaching or something on my phone while I'm driving. Sometimes I don't, but my practice has been anytime there's a slight, you know, kind of disturbance, you know, like you know, a car pulls in front of me or the light goes red, just, you know, late, you know, and whatever, you know, there's anytime there's just a slight disturbance, I'm like, okay, I see that, I'm feeling that, and I'm looking for what's happening in the body. I'm looking for, you know, if you know, if there's access to it, I'm looking for maybe what belief is there. Sometimes it's just very, very, it feels like it's on the surface, you know, like, okay, is the body heated up, or is it feel, you know, is there a pain, or is there a tightening? You know, I'm just always just trying to watch what's happening. And, you know, that game is happening, you know, that's just so helpful, you know, to just be able to be with what's happening rather than skipping to the next thing or thinking about what happened before.
Yeah. Or like, I suppose, like getting like deeply drawn into it in
Yeah.
a way, as you say, that then you're no longer present with it because you're flooded with all sorts of things, other things happening. It's really great, sort of diving into your body. As sort of a first way of accessing where you are there any practice or teachings that have been really helpful for you in cultivating that practice that you have, or were there any sort of particular programs or the retreats that have also really helped you?
Well, all of them, like, you know, gentle healing was kind of mind blowing, you know, and then I started MPP during gentle healing, which I don't, you know, it's not recommended, but it felt like the right thing to do. and MPP is incredible. You know, so it's just so coming back to MPP as a facilitator is amazing as well, because it's like getting to go deeper with it, you know, and also, you know, when you do MPP as a student, you know, you're just concerned with you, you know, and what you're going through and what you're, you know, what processes are happening here. And what I found this, you know, I've only just finished facilitating True Discernment, is that I was able to kind of still go through it myself, but at the same time kind of be aware of the connection and the oneness of all of us in the group, you know. So it was like, it was, you know, there were things that were happening for other people, but they're not other people, you know, they're consciousness. And so it was so brilliant to be able to do that. Yeah. And you know, and the retreats, like every retreat is like, you know, you go, oh, this is just amazing, or, you know, this is the best retreat. And then you do another one and you go, oh, this is the best retreat. Because the thing is, they're, you know, when you get down to it, they're all the same. You know what I mean? They are all the same thing. It's just, you know, you're coming to it with whatever you've got up at the moment.
Yeah. And
so you get what you're bringing to it as well, you know, and it's just wonderful to see that each time I do one, I'm bringing less of me to it. You know, so it's you get, and then you get more.
Get more out of it, yeah.
You'd think, you know, if you brought all of yourself, you know, you'd get more, but actually it's the other way around.
That's such a good point. And is there, you know, in all the retreats you've gone to and studying the MPP, which if people are listening, not familiar with, the Ministerial Preparation Programme, if I'm getting the acronym right, is there any one particular piece of wisdom that has come through for you that you've treasured, or that you sort of held, or would even just like to share?
Well, yeah, there's loads, but one that really kind of and continues to just be of, it's so practical, and it just kind of negates any kind of belief in me of like that there's a problem, is all thoughts are meaningless. And that just, I was going to get like meaningless tattooed on my arm when I heard that. I was just like, you know, that just, no matter what state, you know, and I'm not, you know, enlightened. I'm not like, you know, things still get me, things still, you know, bother me. But when I remember that all thoughts are meaningless, it's like, I can't really hold on to any problem because it's all thoughts and I am the one giving it meaning, you know? So it's like, and even if I do hold on to it for a while, you know, it's like, I go, well, you know, I gave it the meaning and, you know, and I want to be compassionate to myself and loving to myself. So, you know, and that's I don't know where I heard don't give myself a hard time, but that has been huge as well.
Yeah.
Is just to not give myself a hard time. Just not. I think I got that actually at a retreat in Levita. Like Regina never, I don't think she ever said those words, but she had me sitting beside her doing some sort of demonstration of something, and I was telling her about, you know, something that was, you know, like some really, really deep belief that I had of being a terrible parent and how I had really screwed up, and whatever she said to me was just like, you know, you have to stop giving yourself a hard time. You know, that's just, it's of no use, you know. So yeah, so that's been another big, you know, that kind of really, it's not that I don't have I am bad thoughts, I do, but I do not have that deep core belief anymore that I am bad, which is, you know, amazing.
Yeah, but that's a whole different way of living, isn't it, when that has gone or thinned out.
Yeah, it's not good. I don't think it's completely gone.
but yeah, don't give yourself a hard time. That's just, I mean, if we all did that, then we, you know, gets you closer to acceptance in the next moment. So just wrapping up, is there anything you want to share about just what Awakening Together has brought you that might be helpful for others listening who are thinking about, you know, should I take the next step with Awakening Together? Should I follow some of the courses? Should I come to a retreat? Should I listen to some of the audios more? I just wondered if there's anything that you really wanted to share about. I know you love Awakening Together. We all do. That's why we're here. But is there anything you would want to share?
Well, it is an incredible resource. It's like, and it's not just about the wealth of recordings and teachings and retreats and how affordable they all are. Like, you know, when you look out at other things that are out there, you know, like there is no, you know, money being made on this endeavor, you know, and it's not just, that is part of the resource of Awakening Together. But the main resource of Awakening Together is the fact that core values that are, and they're not always lived by, they're not always observed, because, you know, we've got a whole load of ego still, you know, alive and kicking, but they're there, and they make it an extremely valuable place if what you want is to become more empty and more free and more happy. And you know, and it shows up in the availability of opportunities to, you know, to share in the sanctuary and scare the hell out of yourself, to, you know, to join, you know, some of the groups that are, you know, that happen, and share in a group, and to join in a retreat that, you know, you might kind of just think, I can't do that, and then you do it and it's okay, and stuff shifts and things happen, and, you know, it's just amazing. It is an amazing, I've never ever experienced a group like it, you know, and people come and go, and there's not judgments made. Well, maybe people do make judgment, you know, ego makes judgments, that's what happens, but it's not held on to, and it's not, and I don't know, maybe the guidance will be that I, you know, don't come into the sanctuary for a while. I don't know that.
Yeah.
You know, but if it does, I will trust it, because that's what I've learned here as well, is to trust this guidance.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, and that's what I want for everyone else. And that's what everybody wants for everybody else.
Yeah.
Which is you know, an amazing thing.
Yeah, it's such freedom, isn't it, to be able to come, to go, to participate, to sit back, to be real, to look at yourself with, the freedom that is granted by the core values, really, as you say, of Awakening Together. Yeah,
and we, you know, we still have Regina teaching in the sanctuary, and, you know, we have you know, we've watched her, you know, walk her talk, and that's that is precious. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Kate, for coming on and sharing with us about your journey with Awakening Together that is ongoing. So yeah, I hope you have a lovely evening and look forward to seeing you in the sanctuary.
Thank you.
So good afternoon, Inka. Thank you so much for joining us today to share about how Awakening Together has inspired you and some of the things you've learned to share with others. How are you doing?
Pleasure. That's a pleasure. To give back, to an organization that has been so extremely helpful to me.
Oh, so you've been with them a few years. Can you start by just sort of sharing with us what was it that attracted you to Awakening Together?
So it was, I was truly guided there because I had no idea. I still am surprised now that it was as young an organization as it was, right? When I found it, I listened very regularly to the Buddha at the gas pump. And I still do, not as regular as I used to, but and Regina's interview just, was right on, right? Just me. And I looked up her website and I never really left from there. So I feel very guided to the organization in a way.
Oh.
I had come out of, I'm a practitioner in religious science. And so I had different periods in my life of spiritual life, so to speak. And yet this is my home now.
Oh,
has been.
That's lovely. So maybe then we can just sort of start with sort of hearing about what your spiritual aspiration is. Like, what is it that drives you, and then how does Awakening Together sort of speak to that for you? Like, how has it helped you along that path?
So I was on that path of non-duality, and for my brain, for my personality, non-duality at Awakening Together is just tailor-made. Everybody does what they can do, right? It's a community, but it's no dogma, and I think that's critical. My aspiration, so I developed the aspiration that I'm going to say right now, I developed in the course that I think it's the Keys of Kingdom, where we design our spiritual admiration. And I did that twice, coming out. So my spiritual admiration is to feel excitement about my inner life. And to that, I have added since then, because this is like 2 or 3 years ago, to be aware of joy and live out of joy. So, and both are, it's about living inside of you, not outside of you. And for me, that was a critical step. I always will be a people pleaser. So to be aware of that, right? And to be learning methods to counter that. It was critical in my development, in my further development. And the idea of a spiritual aspiration definitely is a big piece of that.
It's so lovely. It's so visceral, yours, because it's like excitement, it's joy, like you can really feel it. So what does your spiritual practice look like at the moment?
So I'm coming out of a very, very severe illness caused by an operation that with complications. And so my recovery, I'm still in recovery. I suffer from up and down energies, blah, 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 blah. But my practice, therefore, is different than it was. That's why I'm saying that. So my practice is what I can do whenever I have the energy. And that has really been a huge learning for me, that I can be in my practice without doing an official, sitting in front of the TV or listening to say, yeah, I can just be in myself
Mm.
and be with God. I think that's, and when you lay in the hospital and there is no way you can even put your head up, that was an immense help to me.
Yeah.
And I still am in that phase. What I have done now is, what I'm doing right now is every morning I start the morning with NTI. And I listen to one broadcast of the NTI course with Regina, and then journal with that. And so that's my practice in the morning. And that's, I've been steady with that. My attendance at classes is usually Tuesday mornings. It's my favorite class with Anne Blanchard. And I would love to have another diet partner. I mean, I so enjoyed our partnership. I mean, it helped, I hope, both of us.
Yeah, it really did.
You know, it really did. And, you know, if I think about what has changed in my life since then,
yeah,
it's just, I mean, I'm living a different life. I'm a different, it's, everything is different, right?
yeah.
And yet I'm the same. So it's such a pleasure to see you and to remember those phone calls in the morning. Oh, that's a tremendous help. But I'm in a stage of my trust, right? Of my trust that if that's the right thing for me to happen, it will happen.
Yeah.
And there will be somebody that, you know, that, so I'm not fretting as much as I used to. Life has, in many ways, life has gotten a lot lighter, right? As I have learned to, I mean, there's so many ways, you know, I have these cards of sayings that I pick up. I've done, I don't mean pretty much all the courses that are being offered. Yeah, it's just a wonderful community. And I really didn't know it was as young as it was when I joined. That's what I just got after you sent me your questions and I kind of looked back and, you know, what date did I do this and that? I had no feeling that this was a new organization. To me, you know, was like forever. So that's an interesting tidbit that I'm taking out of this interview. And I just can hope that the organization thrives without Regina. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one that's missing, right? That's missing her in a way. But, I mean, we all have to adjust.
Yeah.
And but I mean, it looks like to me we're in good shape. And yeah, so it's anniversary, big deal.
There's so much you said, so much in what you just said, whether it's, you know, there are so many practices and teachings within Waking Together, but at the same time, the teaching is like, don't do, just be. So it's like what you're exemplifying at the moment is exactly like that you can.
It helps, you know, it helps your, I'm not just, I'm sure we all have a part of us that's very critical. I mean, we just born that way. And to learn to control that, to learn to be aware that you don't believe your own voice. I mean, you know, that roommate of mine is, you know, and there's enough teachers that are being brought to you within the framework of Awakening Together. I mean, so many new people that you know, like the satsangs, there's so many teachers out there. I never knew, and yet you get to know them through that framework, you know. So it's a pretty impressive organization as far as I'm concerned. So
yeah, and I've never thought about it before as being a new organization. I joined them quite a while ago, but it does always feel fresh, even though the community is, you know, we've known each other for many years. New people come and it always feels, yeah, fresh and young. Are there any particular programs or retreats or even teachings that have really stuck with you that you wanted to share? I mean, you mentioned NTI, but I wonder if there are any, and you mentioned Anne in the morning, any of the retreats or any other of the practices or teachings?
Yeah, the 4 principles of God, I think, were critical for me. So I have a pretty logical mind, and to be able to satisfy that need of putting things in order, so to speak, was really helpful to me. And so I did that work, and I'm still doing that work pretty intensely. That was very helpful. That's not to say that the other courses, the keys of the kingdom, inspired clarity, letting go of fear, I mean, all of them helped me go forward. But I think that the four principles of God were critical to me in my understanding of God, and getting from intellectually, logically, thinking I am a non-dualist, to experiencing non-duality, to be able to look at a flower and connect to that flower. It's very different from sitting and thinking about a flower and thinking how that is all one. So
yeah, that's amazing. And are there any sort of pieces of wisdom that have come through you? Obviously Awakening Together is teaching us always through journaling to be listening for inner guidance and our own wisdom. Is there anything that has stuck with you that's come through that you would be open to sharing?
Well, one of the sentences that I have written all over my apartment is, we're always the ones that apply meaning to everything that offends us.
Oh.
And anytime I just even think my mind wants to get offended, I'll go there and examine why. And then, it usually goes away.
So these posters are literally all over your apartment.
Yeah.
That's great.
I live alone, I'm in permanent solitude now. When you and I were telephoning, but
so the question is, who's offending you?
Well, I mean, there's all kinds of things. Friends that don't call, and people that think should look. I mean, you would be surprised how much you can be offended in 1 hour sometimes.
Oh, love it. I love it. Tell us again before we start to wrap up.
We are always the ones that apply meaning to everything that offends us.
Right.
And then the other one is Leo. Leo is videos that are, they're part of the NTI 500. No, what's it called? 500? Awareness is curative. I like that.
Oh,
awareness is curative. I cannot change anything that I'm not aware of. And so that's another, short one I can remember. I mean, one of the things about all these infections and things I had is my memory is not what it used to be. And so there's a new way I have to remember things, but awareness is curative. I can still do without a piece of paper.
And that's a great one. That applies for everything, I think. God. And so, Yvonne, just wrapping up, is there anything that you wanted to share that we haven't covered about what you appreciate about Awakening Together, or anything that we haven't discussed so far that you wanted to bring up in the last couple of minutes?
Well, I think the people in Awakening Together are the best. I mean, there is such diversity of. I have just now discovered on Sunday nights an hour with the Course in Miracles program. Just fabulous, just different and fabulous. So I really appreciate the diversity of the people in Awakening Together, and the kindness, right? The kindness and the listening to each other as we teach ourselves. That's one thing I have to work on, probably much more, is this tolerant, this understanding that we teach the best we can. I mean, we can't be all oratory geniuses. And so and I love that that's okay here. That's okay here.
Yeah.
So it's quite the organization. So I'm glad I could talk about it, because it's such a piece of me, a big piece of my life, really. And to be able to praise it is great.
Aw. Well, thank you so much. We're so glad you did. Really inspiring just to hear you as well, to share your own appreciation and your journey. Thank you so much, Inka.
Thank you.
And
Thank
yeah, see you in the sanctuary.
Hi, so we've got Shauna joining us from La Vita in the United States. Hi, Shauna, how are you going?
Hi, Julie. Nice to meet you. It's very pleasure to be here.
Well, I hear that you've been involved in Awakening Together from the get-go, because it's celebrating its 10th anniversary now, and you've been involved for about 10 years. So can you tell us how you initially discovered Awakening Together?
Yes, my original spiritual teacher named Daryl Price, we lived together in Northern California, and he knew Dove, and Dove was involved, and Regina was involved in ACIM Gather, and Regina was teaching on ACIM Gather, and that's where I first heard of Regina. And I was sort of looking for another teacher, and the fact that she was a female was very helpful. And also just her teachings were so honest and open, and her sharing was so helpful that I was drawn to her teachings. And that's when I jumped into Awakening Together.
And Shauna, what is it that keeps you involved? What are you getting out of it? How does Awakening Together help you on your spiritual path?
Good question. It's the day-to-day practical practices that Regina has not only shown, but demonstrated through her life, that every moment to moment, am I connected to the truth? Am I watching my mind? Am I being driven by false beliefs, or am I actually able to see them? So it's this, there's nothing else going on. This is what's happening, is this letting go of false beliefs so that truth can be lived.
And what does your involvement in Awakening Together look like? Are there any particular programs that you're involved in, or anything that you'd like to share about what you've been doing in Awakening Together?
Yes, I just finished facilitating the 3.5 years of gentle healing, and I'd taken it myself twice before. The gentle healing program is just essential for immersion into learning these practices and learning the difference between the false self and your truth. And I'm also certified to facilitate my first in-person retreat here in La Vita, Colorado this summer. And I also facilitate the ministerial preparation programs, some of those programs that are coming up. And then I'm also a volunteer as an admin when our sanctuary director is not available. So I do a lot of different things for Awakening Together, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity.
You certainly do a lot, yeah. And I can see that you do it with a lot of joy as well. So the sanctuary, which is online, also has a lot of live programs. Are there any that you particularly enjoy, that you're a regular for?
Yes, I'm pretty much a regular all the time. I'm in the sanctuary as much as I can, but my very number one programs that I don't miss are anything that Regina's doing. And she only has one program right now, which is on Wednesday afternoons. And then also anything that Jacqueline or Rhoda or Anne Blanchard, all those people, I just don't miss their programs. And then I also have two of my own that Spirit has guided me to do. There's Sacred Inquiry, where I just go within and really inquire into whatever topic has been given to me by Spirit. That's on Sundays. And then on Wednesdays, I'm going back through Regina's Awakening games, and I'm sharing those with everyone in the sanctuary. We're playing a different game every week.
And you live close to the Awakening Together retreat house, don't you? And you've said that you're going to be one of the facilitators, or facilitating some retreats coming up. What retreats have you yourself participated in there? Is there any one in particular that sticks out in your memory?
When I first moved here in January of 2019, I took all the retreats, that were here at the retreat house. I've taken them all. And then of course, in 2020, we had more retreats online. I took all of those. So I've taken all the retreats, sometimes several times. There isn't one that jumps out, but the absolutely essential experience of being in person with a facilitator here in this beautiful mountain community with our amazing retreat house caretakers, Jane and Peter. It's just an experience. It's beyond description. You have to be there and experience it. And it just, the essential spiritual growth is beyond compare.
Yeah, it's one of my, it's on my bucket list to make it there one day, for all those reasons that you said, yeah. And I must say they're so reasonably priced as well. It's, yeah, it's amazing. Okay, now, you know, as you know, Awakening Together encourages members to become self-reliant on internal wisdom. What does that look like for you? What could you tell us about how you tune into your inner wisdom?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, when I first came on the spiritual path, I was looking outward for guidance, which was, it's a perfect step, looking outward for the guidance. And as the masters say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. So then I had my first spiritual teacher, again, Daryl Price, and we got real close. And then that was one of the things that drew me to Regina, is this looking inward, turn inward instead of seeking outward all the time, because your inner spiritual wisdom is always right here. It's always available. So that relationship with my own, the absolute inner wisdom, is what's really blossomed since coming to Awakening Together. It's just turning inward always. And through journaling and contemplation, that has become right here. It's right here, right now, this inner wisdom. I don't have to look outside for it at all anymore.
That's precious. And it might be hard to think off the top of your head, but are there any aha moments or particular insights or things that have surprised you in terms of what's come through inner wisdom?
Oh, that's a constant thing. That's how I know it's inner wisdom, is, oh, wow, listen, that would never have been thought of through this mind. And an example is I'm emailing with someone about this people pleasing, this outward focus for attention or for validation. And I'm emailing with someone right now about that. And it's just looking at that energy of looking outside for validation. And when I really looked deeply at that, the attention naturally came inward to this natural strength that's already here. It needs nothing. So that's one of the most recent, was this morning, actually. The most recent aha, it's like, oh, of course. And as soon as the attention comes naturally back inside, I didn't do it. This strength of the truth of what we are becomes absolutely apparent, no doubt.
Does sound very powerful. Would you mind, you've been sharing along those lines, but would you mind talking a bit about what your current spiritual practice looks like?
Sure. The first thing in the morning, as soon as my eyes wake up, I check within, and I do a devotional, almost like prayer of, let me see only truth today. Help me to see truly. Help me to see all the false ideas that are being believed. Help me to be gracious and charitable and loving today. And it's just so amazing. And then I do some exercises, and then I do a meditation / contemplation. Right now I'm really into Angelo DeLillo. It's a book that that Regina suggested, one of the best books about awakening that she's ever read. His book's called Awake. And so I contemplate a video or a portion of his book every morning, or whatever I'm guided. And then throughout the day, I'm just watching my mind for believing these false ideas, for how my body is reflecting what I'm believing at the moment. The body's such a great communication device. You can just go right within, and when there's tension or there's a churning, go within and look, what belief am I giving attention to? And then just being really conscious throughout the day, slowing way down, be present, be conscious, notice when I'm excited or beyond or outside, looking outside for any kind of validation.
And when you notice a loss of peace, what's your go-to practice?
The go-to practice is it depends on how I'm kind of guided. If I'm really involved or engaged, it's rest, accept, and trust, which of course is one of Regina's foundational practices. And sometimes I can just go, oh, I see that thought. That's a thought I don't need to believe. I'm going to bring attention back within. Or I can just be present, totally present, conscious, and just feel that energy and let it go. I don't even have to really look at it or inquire into it if I'm really present. Just, let that go. Come back to presence. Those are the three main ways that I practice.
I felt that relief just hearing you say let that go then. Yeah, it's a simple practice and yet it is so effective. Not always easy though. Now you mentioned Regina and you also mentioned Angelo DeLullo's book before, but are there any other books? Is there any book in particular that has helped enable your spiritual growth?
Yes, NTI, which is what the Holy Spirit's interpretation of the New Testament that Regina scribed. That one is absolutely the go-to for me over and over and over again. And also Michael Singer's The Untethered Soul. That's just like a playbook for me, big time. Those are the two main ones.
I've just started rereading that actually, yeah, so that's one of the things I'm contemplating. Now, in relation to NTI, are there any particular lines that come to mind from that or quotes from it that particularly resonate or touched you or that you particularly treasure?
Yes, there's many. The one that just came to mind, though, is the whole idea that a part of consciousness said, oh, I wonder what things would be like if they were different. You know, what would the experience be like if it's different? And then poof, here's all this manifestation, and this is what we're experiencing, and this is what I'm believing, and it's so backwards. It's just this is just consciousness having an experience. It doesn't mean anything. And that just really resonated for me. It's like, you know, A Course in Miracles says it was a tiny mad idea. And that always brought up guilt for me. You know, so, oh my God, I thought this thought. And it's like, oh my gosh. But in NTI is so gentle at just pointing to the fact that, oh, it was just a wish. It doesn't mean anything at all. That's cool. What we are is just experiencing it. So experience it fully. That's what we're here for. And then just let it go.
Now, another thing that Awakening Together encourages us to do is to hone our spiritual aspiration, to spend time reflecting on that and actually formulating perhaps a brief statement. Do you mind sharing what yours is at the moment?
No, in fact, I've already said it. I want to see truly. I want to see truly, clearly, not only the truth, but the false ideas that I'm believing. So I want to see truly.
And Shauna, the Movie Watchers group, I believe that's once a month, and it's where members come together to watch a movie and to enjoy it, but also to look for, to see it as a way of reflecting on and looking for spiritual wisdom or what we can learn from it. Are there any movies that you've watched through that group that you found particularly helpful in that regard?
Yes, I would highly recommend Violet. It's a beautiful example of a woman coming to realize that she doesn't have to believe her thoughts. And then Revolver, it's absolutely fabulous. It's very violent, but it's absolutely fabulous demonstration of someone seeing their ego and just letting it go.
Now, given it's the 10th anniversary of Awakening Together, is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to share about what you really appreciate about Awakening Together? And perhaps anyone that's new to Awakening Together, it might be helpful for them to hear.
Yes, several things come to mind. The fact that Regina was shown that she can hand out lights. She's handing out the lights to everyone, and she has done that just, you know, so beautifully, handing out lights to all of us to follow our own inner wisdom. And the fact that we give so many programs for free. Oh my gosh. I mean, 3.5 years of gentle healing is free. All the programs in the sanctuary are free. It's just, please, please, please take advantage of all the programs that Awakening Together offers. And there's so many ministers that have stepped up and answered Regina's call to fill in because she's retired now. There's so many new ministers and new teachers in the sanctuary. Please take advantage of the sanctuary and all the new ministers and the teachings, whatever you feel resonates within your heart. Please follow that.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, all that you said. One other thing, obviously people on a spiritual path can spend time alone, contemplating, reading spiritual books, meditating, etc. What do you see as the benefits of being in a spiritual community? How can that help someone along their spiritual path, or what's been your experience with that?
Well, the biggest advantage for me has been able to talk to someone who listens. You know, in the spiritual community, they will actually listen, and a lot of times they'll understand, or what you're saying will resonate. Whereas if I talk to someone outside of the spiritual community, a lot of times they just don't respond. Like I call it hearing crickets. They just don't know what to say, or they think you're weird, or just so great to be with people who are on the same path, and you can share your challenges and you can share your insights and your breakthroughs. And when you're together, you can feel this spiral upward in vibration, which is getting closer and closer to what the truth of us are. So the gathering together and this group synergy is just absolutely essential and priceless.
Yes, it totally is. And you're one of the people, the amazing people that make it so much more of just a very supportive experience, and so many mighty companions, literally. So, well, if there's anything else you'd like to say, you go ahead.
Well, thank you. I just want to give a huge, deep, heartfelt gratitude to Regina for all she's done, for Jacqueline and Rhoda for taking up and following in her footsteps in their own beautiful way, and Sina for being an absolutely fabulous sanctuary director, all the board of trustees, the board of directors. And this is just a fabulous organization, all the teachers and the students, and it's just such an incredible light in the world that looks like it really needs some light right now. So, you know, it's just a beautiful, beautiful experience to be a part of Awakening Together, and I'm so deeply grateful.
Yes, me totally as well. Yeah, incredibly grateful, and grateful to you, Shauna. It's lovely to connect with you. Thank you so much for your time today and for sharing all those gems.
Well, thank you, Julie. I appreciate you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So hi, now we're speaking to Reverend Yolanda, and you're joining us today from where?
From Brooklyn, New York City.
And I understand you've had quite connections with Awakening Together going back to the early days, but particularly since the pandemic. And why was that?
Well, for one reason, we couldn't get out and about in New York. I was ordained in New York City by One Spirit Interfaith Ministries, and in 2011, and from 2011 until 2020 I was very busy doing music in churches around New York City and the area, you know, and the tri-state area, and I couldn't do that anymore. And we decided, you know, to really focus on Awakening Together as our spiritual home, and we're so glad we did. Because it really is the first place that I've ever felt totally accepted. So it was, and now it is our prime church, our primary church. I'm on the board of trustees, so member board of trustees. So it's become, our primary spiritual community.
And as that primary spiritual community, how does it help you along your spiritual path?
Oh my goodness. Every day, I'll say this first, every single day, Monday through Friday, we meet in the sanctuary to have morning meditation. And I think for one, that has given me the most insight into how to live my life on a day-to-day basis that I can really say. And of course, Regina's teachings and Jacqueline's teachings and the wisdom from the community itself. But what I find that has happened is it's just the non-judgmental approach to everything and the non-dual approach to everything that gives me tools to live my life in a way that I would prefer to live it, rather than all caught up in anxiety and fear, until we started really interacting with the sanctuary on a regular daily basis. I don't think I had a grasp on how to use the spiritual principles that I'd been talking about and had been swimming around in my head, but I don't think I had really figured out, or allowed spirit to flow through me in the way that it does now,
Yeah, so that's a priceless thing. Yeah, very powerful.
Yeah.
And Reverend Yolanda, you know that in Awakening Together, there's a lot of importance placed on listening to our own spiritual intuition and to our own inner wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about tuning into that? What's been your experience doing that?
Well, the first thing I do is, and this is something I've really learned from Awakening Together, is to identify my thoughts from spirit's voice. You know what I mean? So that's the very first thing. And then, I don't know, after that, it just seems easier. Like, I've always referred to spirit's guidance as intuition, my intuition. But prior to really, connecting with Awakening Together the way that we do now, I think I was confused about my intuition at a lot of times, what actually my intuition was. So my husband has a phrase that he says listen to the voice that likes you. And that actually really, along with our teaching and meditation and everything else, putting all that together just really allowed me to see the difference, and to really understand intuition coming through me and guiding me.
I must say, I love that about listening to the voice that likes you. It's just nails it, and it's so sweet. And I heard that, and through Awakening Together, and it's so helpful.
It is. So, it's so
thanks,
helpful.
Glenn.
Yeah, I know. That's good.
Thank you for sharing that. Now, you also know Awakening Together encourages people to develop or hone their spiritual aspirations, so to reflect on what their true desire is and to summarize it in a fairly brief statement. Do you have a current spiritual aspiration?
Yes. It is to know that Yolanda is a fictional character. My spiritual aspiration as of right now is to really grasp that the ego personality, that which I call Yolanda, is a fictional character, and that it's not true, it's an illusion, and it's an experience that is happening, through this learning device, this body. So that gives me great peace to know that this personality is a fictional character.
What's your go-to process in terms of when you notice a loss of inner peace? Are there any practices you particularly treasure or find effective?
Mm-hmm. I go immediately into mantra. I'm a singer-songwriter, and I music and rhythm and things like that are very important to me. And I go immediately to a mantra, whether it be a Sanskrit mantra or a song that I wrote based on A Course in Miracles, or any number of spiritually uplifting phrases and things. One that I like a lot, that I've carried with me for many years, is from Louise Hay, and it just talks about loving yourself. And so that's my immediate go-to. If I'm flummoxed in any way, I immediately go to whatever mantra comes to me at the moment. So I have a lot of them, and usually one will just present itself to me. So that's what I usually do.
And that you've sort of covered aspects of this, but how would you describe your spiritual practice at the moment? What does it look like?
It very much looks like meditation in the morning, and practicing whatever tool of the day that I'm using. I usually follow the workbook lessons of A Course in Miracles, and I will practice that lesson throughout the day. Today's is, now are we one with him who is our source, which is so helpful to me. It's if I get an upset, I'm like, oh, I'm one with him who is my source. And so that is truly what I do. I walk through my day and repeat my mantra or my tool for the day, and whenever upset occurs, I go directly to it.
Now, Regina Dawn Akers, the founding minister of Awakening Together, has written various books. Are there any parts of those books or any quotes that particularly you cherish, or anything that you'd like to share from any of the various publications?
Yes, well, this may not be actually in a publication, but it's her, I use this all the time, and it's probably my favorite teaching of hers. Just the phrase rest, accept, and trust, that just takes care of everything for me. And I don't know, Regina is so clear in her teachings that they just hit me directly, and I totally feel relief. If I just say to myself, rest, accept, and trust, that puts me right. Right there. I'm really excited about her new translation of the Tao Te Ching, and I can't wait to get my copy. It should be coming really soon. And that because we're studying that on Sunday nights, and there will be some gems in there for sure that I know that I'll be using. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hot off the presses, and I've already got it on my Kindle and started
really,
to
you do?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I can't wait.
Yeah.
I can't wait to get it. Yeah, I was gonna
Now,
get
so you mentioned Sunday evenings then. So obviously there's a huge offering of free programs live in a sanctuary.
Oh, yeah.
And are there any in particular that have been favorites for you in the last year or so that you always make sure you're regular for? And then talk about the programs that you offer, please.
Oh, yeah. Well, I really love clarifying the teachings. Regina's clarifying the teachings. We were present live with her when she first started doing clarifying the teachings in the sanctuary, and now they're recorded, and we're sort of going over them again each Sunday night with Jacqueline. And to me, that was the most helpful thing. Her 4 principles of God really is something that helps me understand the multi-dimensional aspect of living in this 3D situation, So that's one teaching that really resonates with me. And yeah, I think that series for me was the best. I really do. And on Sunday nights, Glenn and I have our program at 5 p.m. But then Enlightened Leadership is right after that, where we're studying the Tao Te Ching. And that's where Regina's, translation is coming in. And then, of course, then we review clarifying the teachings after that. And then whatever, there's different songs and different things, after clarifying the teachings. But I do think, for me, the original clarifying the teachings, watching Regina do it live, and then now going over it again, it's just my favorite thing.
Just a few more questions. Do you ever attend the movie watchers group that's once a month in the sanctuary?
Yes. Let's see. I can't remember the last one we attended because we were gone out of town the last time it was occurring. But the choices are always so great. So I can't wait to see what's coming up next. It's a terrific time to do something really fun with each other and then really look at how they reflect our spiritual principles. That was a great idea, whoever came up with that.
Now, given that it is that we're celebrating the anniversary, or the 10th anniversary of Awakening Together, is there anything else about Awakening Together that you would like to express your appreciation for, or perhaps for people that are new to Awakening Together that might be useful for them to know?
Yes. What I'd like to say is I have never met a more loving group of people. And I've been interested in spirituality since I was a young child, and I've been involved in many churches. It's always been a very difficult fit for me. Even in some of the New Age and New Thought and non-dual communities, but there's something very, very wonderful about the Awakening Together community. And I think that lies in the heart of Regina, and she's given it to all of us. And it's just this non-judgment. It's just this real acceptance. And if there's something that needs to be corrected, it's easy to have a discussion with someone without feeling fear or punishment or anything like that. It's just so, we're an assembly of equals. It says it right there in the core values. And never have I ever met a group of people that really live that value to the fullest, like I think Awakening Together does.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Lovely way to express it. And that's very much been my experience too, and one of the things that I treasure about it as well. So is there anything else that you'd like to say before we wrap up?
I love us.
You're so joyful, and I love that about your program. And anytime I see you in the sanctuary, it's just
Thank you, Julie.
Yeah, you really transmit a lot of joy. So lovely connecting with you, and thank you so much for sharing all this with us.
Thank you, Julie, for doing this. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.